Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. My guests for this week are Ben and Crystal Woods. Ben and Crystal Woods are launching a program called The Brave Way Home. Ben and Crystal Woods have been teaching pastors, college-age ministry pastors, and missionaries. Ben and Crystal have a very tremendous testimony to share, and through their strength and their bravery, they sat down with me and my wife and discussed their life and their ministry and how they've ended up here today. They share their testimony about their family, about their marriage, and about the life that they are in right now and the path that has been set before them. I just want to express my deepest gratitude to Ben and Crystal for coming onto the platform and having the strength and the courage to share something so deep and faith shaking. It is a reality that most people don't endure, and they themselves have been walking through this day by day. I want to let you know ahead of time before we enter this episode, they have suffered a loss in the family. And this was something that the community of Southern Indiana and Louisville, Kentucky were keeping up with very closely. Oddly enough, this event was actually something that led up to me meeting Ben and Crystal for the first time. My wife has known them since college and beyond, but Ben and Crystal are walking a path that few people have and few people can bear. And with that being said, I want to personally say that to me they are beacons of courage and light and strength, and I was honored to have them on the show. I'm excited to get to the episode. I'm excited for you guys to hear and to learn about what Ben and Crystal are doing, about their pursuits, about their mission and their calling. I would encourage you to support them however you can, because they're one of a kind and they're a blessing to be around. Long story short. Before we do that though, thank you all again for your support. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following along. Thank you for your engagement and your encouragement. If you enjoy the show and you feel that it blesses you and gives you a different perspective on life, or just inspires you or encourages you in some way, I would ask that you consider financially supporting the podcast. There are 2 donation pages. One is patreon.com/George Shadburn. And then the second is the podcast website, which is on the link in the bio of my social media, my Instagram. There's a donation page on the podcast website as well. So with that being said, thank you so much for all of your encouragement and your support. I can't say enough good things about Ben and Crystal. I really can't. But man, for them to be as joyful and just to brighten the room the way they do, they are significant. They are significant people, and the brevity of their testimony will move you deeply. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. This is Ben and Crystal Woods, and this is the Shadburn Show. Ben and Crystal Woods, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I'm very excited to finally be talking to you guys. We've had a talk a couple months ago, and we were talking about you guys coming on, but you guys have just stepped into a new chapter of your life, and that's what we were waiting for. We wanted you guys to be able to launch the next thing that you guys were doing and be able to talk about that. So, Ben, Crystal, thank you guys so much for coming on. I can't thank you all enough. If you could for me real quick, just for anybody that's listening instead of watching, just introduce yourselves real quick and just give a brief introduction of who you are for me.
Yeah. First off, thank you for letting us be here. So thank you a ton just for the opportunity, the invitation. But my name is Ben, and this is my wife, Crystal. Is it okay that I say that out loud? I don't want to steal your thunder. But we... A little bit about us. We met in college back before the turn of the century in 1997.
The turn of the century.
Yeah, we can say that now, right? Because we're 21 years into this gig, and for however much longer it lasts, it seems like that's our window. So
seriously.
But we met at freshman orientation in college, and we can maybe tell more of that story here in a little bit, but this coming June, we will celebrate. So in a matter of weeks, we will celebrate 20 years
Oh my gosh.
of marriage.
Congratulations
So,
to you guys.
yeah.
I think I know the only piece I know is like when you saw her, you were like, wow. Who
Yeah,
is there?
it was
Something.
whoa. Yeah. I remember, and we were in freshman orientation. Okay. So, and we're in one of those classes where they're orienting you to something,
Yeah.
And I remember I'm focused, I'm taking notes on what the professor up front is kind of telling us is going to be important about being a freshman. And I hear this voice lean over from behind me, and it just says, "Hey, can I borrow a pencil?" And I turned around, and it was her, and I was like, in my head thinking, you can have all of my pencils, like whatever, like you can have, like, yeah.
Yeah, and I just needed a pencil. I was very unprepared as most of my life.
Yep. So there you have it.
That just goes to show what happens when you just ask a random guy for a pencil.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you never
Changed
know
my
what God
life.
has.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have spent most of your life in Southern Indiana. Am I
Are you going
guessing?
to let Crystal introduce herself?
Oh yeah, my bad. Sorry.
Hi,
I gave a little bit.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
He
My
always
bad.
you're
forgets to introduce me, too, by the way. Hi. His wife's also on this
You've
podcast.
been on this show for how long?
Whatever.
You're a staple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm Crystal. I'm like, what else do I have to say? We have 3 kids. We have Ezra, who is now 14, and we have Kala, who is our center child, and she is 9, and then we have Lila, who is 6 now.
Okay.
Nice. So, you guys have, since college, spent most of your life doing ministry, I'm guessing, and spent your time in Southern Indiana. Have you guys been at other places of the world?
Yeah. So we met at Bible College in Lincoln Christian. Now it's Lincoln Christian University. It was just college when we were there. And so, excuse me, we, both of us, our degrees are in like pre-counseling, like family life ministry.
Okay.
And so, but in college, I started a rock band with my roommate and some buddies, and spent the next 8 years running around the country in a rock band. That was kind of our
Wow.
first
So cool.
step into vocational ministry in some form.
Yeah.
We were playing everything from bars, churches, clubs, coffee houses, anywhere where people gather.
Wow.
And so for us, music is a big piece of our lives. That became a big piece of what ministry was going to look like for us. But
So Crystal came with you? in
yeah,
that? Oh,
thankfully, yeah.
Wait, were you guys married at this point?
So for the first 2.5 years, we were full-time college students.
Okay.
And so it wasn't until after graduation from college, the next 5.5 years, it became our full-time job.
Okay.
And so she was with us most of the time.
We got married right after graduation. So,
Okay.
then I just traveled with them. I
Aw.
did their merch.
Wow.
So supportive.
But I
were
love that
mastermind.
time. And we've just always had that philosophy of ministry that we're just better together. We go together. We serve together.
Yep.
We do things together because that's just how our marriage has worked. We're a team.
Did you
Yeah.
think that originally when you guys first got together?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm still convincing her. We're
Yeah.
better together.
Well, yeah.
That's funny.
I mean, you go through.
I
Yeah.
think like especially as you're learning different, you have different gifts, you have different passions, you have different means by which you express those, and and for whatever it's worth, for us, like I am thoroughly convinced that I am at my best when she's at my side. And so when we were on the road, her presence was like glue for our dudes. Like the guys, there's a motherly way about Crystal.
Yeah.
And there were some times where she couldn't travel with us. And I remember some of the guys like, well, what do we do? What it's like, guys, we're a rock band. Like, we're going to go melt some faces. That's what we're going to do, But it's like when Crystal couldn't come with it, it like, it occurred to us all of the things that she would do that made our ministry function at its best, that we then needed to step into those roles. Because she will say like, oh, I just sold their t-shirts. Like, good heavens, she designed it, she stocked it, she presented it, but she also fielded a lot of ministry moments with a lot of ladies, with a lot of gals, in ways that we weren't equipped to have those conversations, or in wisdom we're going to have those conversations. And so her presence on the road with us was, I'm going to say, essential.
Well, it was a good period of time to kind of learn that everything can be ministry when you have an intentionality behind it. And
Yeah.
so we were traveling, and like whether or not I was just sitting behind a booth and just chatting with somebody who came, like there's ministry that can happen when you're intentional with it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like even after we had Ezra, he was at about 4 months, we put him in the van with us.
Oh, man.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that
you
kid,
guys are like Johnny
Ezra-
Swim kind of.
Ezra logged like over 90 rock shows while still in her belly, and then several after. But
I was about to say, like, I was wondering if y'all waited to start a family until after the band, or like, during.
yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, it's a different season of life, right? I mean, like we were playing 180, 200 dates a year, all over the country and out of it. So like we were gone a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember, you were talking earlier about like reading to your belly and everything like that.
Yeah.
Like, I remember we during our set, because every night, if you're playing 4 or 5 nights a week,
Right.
Yeah.
with 2, 3, 4 bands, you're listening to a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right, seriously.
Like, right?
Yeah.
And we noticed, and we didn't know we were having Ezra. We just knew we were having baby. We waited to be surprised if we were going to have a boy or girl.
Oh wow.
But we noticed, because I was singing to her belly all the time. But I remember like this kiddo started like moving during our set.
Wow.
And I remember asking the doctor about it, and the doctor said, well, if you're singing to her belly every night,
Yeah.
like the only thing different is it's a whole lot louder when you're on stage singing into a microphone. I'm like, that's the most rock and roll thing I've ever heard. I was like, yes.
That is so cool.
No, so stinking cool.
And
yeah.
Ezra is he the most musical out of all three?
Yeah, I guess.
I think so.
Because I saw your video of him drumming.
He's the most he's the furthest along. Like the dude's
That's
a drummer.
true.
He's
Yeah.
he's I think he's found his thing. Like, and he's kind of always been drawn towards percussion or just beating on things. But like even at an early age, he was building drum sets around him. So
That's awesome.
That's cool.
yeah.
I love that.
You didn't play that? Did you like play your music years later? And he's like, "Where have I heard this?" Or something?
It's funny because like he has an appreciation for it, but we're not his style. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I got it.
What was the style of band that y'all? What was your style of music?
I would just say guitar-driven pop rock.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's what I would call it, I guess.
I think I've only heard one. Like, I think I saw it either on social media or... Did you ever play at Northside?
Ages ago, yeah.
Maybe it was
Long
like a
time
video
ago.
of that.
Could have been.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I vaguely remember it. But
Yeah, that would have been like 15 years ago, maybe somewhere around there.
Wow.
Said that out loud. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not saying wow in like a devastating way. I'm like, wow, man. You know, I mean, sometimes every TV show comes to an end, I guess.
Yeah, right?
You know? No,
And
but
there was just that stirring of like, okay, it's time for something new, time for something
Yeah.
different.
yeah.
Yeah, because when we stepped off the road, it was a sense of it's time.
Did y'all
And-
step right into ministry, or?
We just kind of we took a season to kind of make the transition. So for us, like everything we'd been doing was just ministry, but it's traveling.
yeah.
To move it to like a located setting, to go from being with a different group of people every night to the same people every day, was a pretty big shift for us, but a beautiful one. And we stepped into ministry at the University of Illinois,
Oh, wow.
serving,
Cool.
doing campus ministry. So I was a campus pastor there.
Oh, nice.
They're on campus working with college-age young adults. And I think God birthed a lot of that out of a lot of the places we were playing around the country. We were with a lot of college-age young adults.
Yeah.
Like we found
Yeah.
ourselves drawn to serving a generation,
Yeah.
and began serving them in a different way. So, yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
y'all took to college students pretty easily, but did you? I guess y'all went from being basically messengers all over the country to becoming shepherds, essentially. Like y'all were.
Yeah.
And did y'all take to that pretty decently, or were y'all having to navigate like what does running a college ministry look like here, and what does it look like to day in and day out with these kids? Was that a learning curve for y'all at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's a completely different, arena, but at the same time, a lot of the ways that our family was growing, we had Kala at that point, and it was like it was just natural for us to
Yeah, I was gonna
plug
say the word
into
natural.
Nice.
into that setting together, where I would just pack the kids up and head into their weekly meeting, and we'd just sit around and worship with them and be there, and they love our kids, and it was just a natural way for us to integrate as a family.
Yeah, because I think being in a campus ministry, you're a discipleship arm of the local church. You are a presence on campus, and for us, we were specifically focused on University of Illinois students. Well, we got 45,000 students from 130 different countries. It's the second largest international student enrollment
I didn't know that.
in the country.
Wow.
The whole
I didn't
world
know
is
that.
in that cornfield.
Oh,
Okay,
cool.
so like it's a pretty happening place. There's a lot going on that campus.
That's really interesting.
And students are coming from everywhere. They're not just, there's people from Champaign-Urbana that are enrolled there, but most are from everywhere but there. And
That's really
so
interesting.
that uprootedness that they're navigating, it naturally, I mean, became a space for us as a family to have them in our home, to have them in our lives, where God brought them into our lives. He brought us into theirs. And in a campus ministry setting, you're on campus.
Right.
You're the ministry setting. Students are in and out of the building.
Right.
Constantly. So like, I mean, it was pretty common that like, and you had dudes living upstairs of our ministry building. So like, it'd be pretty common. I would be in my office and somebody would roll in just gym shorts and sit down with a bowl of cereal and just sit in my office. And he's like, just wanting to have breakfast with Ben, before going to class. And it's like, this is great. Like, put some pants on, like, this is great.
Oh gosh.
That's
wow.
awesome.
That kind of reminds me of Asbury, but Asbury's way smaller. But they have a huge international community. And like that uprootedness that you're talking about is such a beautiful space to like work in, because there's like a humility there that's like, this isn't my place. So they're like so much more receiving of like your hospitality or just like your words, because they need that home. Yeah. And so that's really cool.
Yeah. It was a beautiful time, I think, and it brought people into our life that
are still just super big parts of our heart and relationships that I think we'll have forever,
I mean, and getting to, I mean, for so many of them, get to officiate their weddings or get to baptize them, and now we're getting to watch them have kids, and like it's just
that's awesome.
That season God brought remarkable people into our life that because of that season we now get seasons plural with them, that they're in our lives now. They may not geographically be right next to us,
right?
But it was in that season, I think, working in parachurch, and for us, even touring, our heart has always been local church. Everything that when we were playing dates in different places, the steps we were trying to take were to build trust with local pastors that we could connect people with. If we've made a connection with them musically and relationally, we don't want to just be like, hey, that's great. We wanted to bridge some of those gaps. And so that same heart for local church was fostered on that campus, but it's also what birthed in us a desire to be a part of creating college-age young adult ministry birthed out of the church. And that's what brought us to Southern Indiana.
Okay.
So
I've never known any of this. This is like so cool for me to like find out. 'Cause
it's I mean, I think it's really interesting that y'all had such like a large network to work with, like from people being over different corners of the world, like all coming to that one area. Like it seems like y'all have just basically been networking like on a large scale, even though it was like through a band touring all over the country from just like one small place to small place or whatever, and then being at this college campus where just everybody was coming to you instead of you going to them. But one thing I've always actually wanted to know, especially with like college age pastors, is I've met so many who have always kind of had like this open door policy, and people are going to be, because you're a shepherd, you're a leader, you're somebody who can give counsel, they're going to be hitting you up at all hours of the night, and that's awesome. That's a part of the thing that comes with it, because you get to have that community. But I also think on the other hand of it, like, is there a toll for this sort of thing? Is there like, especially with having a family, like I've talked to some of the pastors at Southeast, and they tell me all the people that they like get lunch with on a regular basis or dinner with or whatever. And I'm like, do you guys get time to sit down with one another and say like, hey, I remember when we hung out that one time like 4 months ago, how have you been since then? Like, was that, has it typically been like that, or what was that like navigating?
I mean, for us, just because we've approached it as a team, it has been more of our ministry versus just his ministry. And so the kids and I would go to all of the things, all of the gatherings, and we would have hangouts with the college students. I mean, our Kala, her best friends are college
She
students.
had more college friends than I ever did.
I mean, and
Yeah.
it's not just a one-sided where we just give. They give to us
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're part of our lives. They're our friends. They're our community.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we had to draw this line about this is our time and this is our time with you. It was just community moving together. And that's not to say that there shouldn't be boundaries. I think that's
Right.
appropriate.
Yeah.
And Ben was very protective of like bedtime in particular. Like he wanted to be home for bedtime. That's a priority, you know. And that can be hard to protect when you're at church for different events, especially on a college age schedule.
Yeah.
College age felt like, ironically, one of the most needy times of my life. They talk about how between the ages of 19 to 24, like 90% of people during that time just set the pace for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And so it's critical. And I remember from 19 to 24 just feeling like I had no oxygen as far as like what is this? What am I doing? Who am I? Who am I going to be? What do I believe? What am I going to search for? What am I going to ground my feet in? And I remember just feeling so needy the whole time. And then I was like, I can only surmise what everybody else in my community is going through. And then to be the designated shepherds of that community is like, I'm like, every time I saw like Justin or Ashley Weiss at Southeast, I'm like, can I get you groceries? Like, can I mow your lawn? Like, are you guys okay?
Yeah.
Like, because if I'm hitting you up like I am, and you have a congregation of 200 plus kids to work with, like, bless your hearts. Like,
Yeah. But it's one of those things where, just like she said, like, we're a team. And I think back to what our hope and heart has always been, I mean, you're going to hear us even say this, like, all of our, like, the culture code, the value systems expressed through the ministry that we've had the blessing of getting to be a part of creating and leading, those culture codes they've come from our family, our marriage and family. And so, like, I mean, whether out of singleness or out of marriage, priesthood of all believers, right? So that whole thing of like, yeah, I was the one on staff, but for us and the way we do life, I mean, and I know you've heard this before, but where we go together. That culture code is a Team Woods culture code that like we're trying to teach our children what the life of the church is, that you don't leave people behind, that you stay present in the mess. You don't run from the mess. You run to the mess, because that's where your presence is needed, because that's where God wants to usher so much of his love and his comfort and his peace into people's pain, right? And so the concept of wherever we go, we're going to do that together, whatever it looks like, even if it's beautiful or if it's straight ugly, it's together.
Yeah.
And that's the life of the church. Well, if that is in our family and that ministry is coming out of our family, then it's naturally going to pour into anyone else we invite to journey with us. So I think, like, yeah, you're on call 24/7.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. Like she was saying, I think one of the big pieces for us is we spend a lot of time talking about the difference between alignment and balance. I mean, how much of life we're told you just find balance,
Yeah.
And what happens when you find balance? You put things on a scale,
Yeah.
and you try to get it to even out, and all we've done is we've given pieces of ourselves to a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
And maybe it's more about me being in right relationship with Christ. If my identity is in him and I'm rooted and I'm anchored there, and she's doing the same thing, well, when I'm in that right relationship, I am best equipped to pour into her and love her the way I'm called to, right?
Yeah.
And she for me. And when we're doing that side by side, the overflow of that relationship then pours into our children.
Yeah.
And then that flows into anyone else that we're hoping to shepherd. It's protecting our first ministry, because if those things aren't in alignment, I don't know why anyone would listen to anything I have to say as a pastor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because anything I'm telling them would not be what I'm teaching them with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes not taking a call in the middle of the night is the best way to serve them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you are inviting them into your life because you want to do life together, it takes all the pressure off of being on call.
Yeah.
It's the privilege of shepherding, that you get to be the person that is walking with them through both the beautiful and the broken, ugly stuff that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Where you've seen them at their best and you've seen them at their worst and you've seen God present in every bit of it.
Yeah.
And you just, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good and it's a privilege.
Yeah. That's, gosh, so many like fireworks are going off in my brain of like, yes, I agree. And I've experienced that. And like, yes. But I've always told Drew that like my favorite form of like discipleship or ministry is when people like are so hospitable with you to the point you feel like a family member. And that's really like when you look at Jesus's life, that's really like what it is. That's what it looks like, is when people walk alongside you so closely that you see all the ugly, but they're like, yeah, you're welcome anyway. And like, I love what you're saying about family, because I think of Genesis and how like God created family and like how that's the start, and then everything kind of explodes out of that. And yeah, I just love like the alignment that you're talking about there, and how like really healthy, beautiful things come from a healthy family, and then that's just perfect like ground to invite people into. And you don't have to be doing anything, but like Drew, you were saying how needy you were in those like times, and I feel like there are so many hungry people that just want to be invited into a family.
And that's what I was going to say is like, maybe you weren't needy, you were just hungry.
Yeah.
And I think like there's so many misconceptions, right? Like, I mean, there's so many misconceptions about not just discipleship, but even intergenerational stuff. Like, we've got to find the ways for peer-to-peer.
Right.
We have to find the pathways for us to be around people who are in the same season. But we can't squander the opportunities to connect them to people who've lived a little bit longer and walked a little bit further, who want to walk alongside. Because discipleship, goodness, if we can start seeing discipleship through the lens of the tools that we're putting in people's backpacks, like if you think of it as we're walking alongside one another for a season, whether that's a moment or conversation, or that is months or years, however long you're getting to walk alongside somebody.
Yeah.
How are you best equipping them for when you're not walking alongside them? What are you putting in their backpack?
Yeah.
And if we can maybe flip the script to see discipleship through that lens instead of a program that we build, and it be about things we put in people's backpacks, I think we can begin to see all kinds of beautiful things unfold, just because we've been given a window when you were hungry for what you needed, not just what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And the person who had the privilege to walk with you in that has their fingerprints are on everything that you're doing now.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
That's awesome.
And that's the body of Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
I
like
geek
look
out
to
about
think
that.
on
I
that
know,
now,
I
and to
do
think
too.
about like who may have impacted me enough to like want to start like this podcast or something. That would be like a really cool thing to like go back and be like, hey, we're not so deeply involved in each other's life right now, but like
There's some stuff you gave me that I'll never forget.
this is a result of us walking alongside each other. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amen and amen.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good place to segue into don't tell me
Brave Way Home.
Brave Way.
The brave way
Dang
home.
The
it.
Brave Way
Yeah.
Home.
It's like I can do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, not to skip over anything, but like
Yeah.
since we're talking about ministry, I'm just like, this might be a good place to segue into it. So however you want to start that would be a good place to start.
Yeah. I mean, this is the new chapter that y'all are starting in
Yeah.
everybody,
Well, and we, the season we're in now maybe only makes sense if we speak to some of the season we've been in.
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have just launched a discipleship ministry that we are hopeful and expectant, but it's been birthed out of a place of grief.
Mm-hmm.
It's been birthed out of facing the unimaginable.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose it might be helpful if we just kind of walk back through some of our story, as Crystal shared, like we have 3 remarkable children.
Mm-hmm.
We have Ezra, we have Kala, and we have Lila.
Mm-hmm.
And in May of 2019, while I was in Tinca, Romania,
Mm-hmm.
serving with Forget Me Not Ministries with a whole bunch of college-age young adults, our sweet Kala started having headaches. And it might be best if you want to share a little bit of that, being on this side of things.
So Calla was having headaches, and we were trying to dig into what exactly they were and why they were, and it's such a hard thing to pinpoint. Is it allergies or hormones?
Yeah.
Is it stress? Is it a whole host of things.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried to figure that out, and then they kept getting worse. And so I took her to the doctor while Ben was in Romania, and she'd said maybe, it might be stress. It might be like a tension headache where this is a stressful time, Dad's gone. But then almost that day, she started to develop flu-like symptoms and was really sick, where we thought, okay, it's just a virus, but then it kept being sick. And so I was like, well, I want to take her in to at least try to make her more comfortable, give her, something that can help her feel better. And during that time, they took us in for a CT scan, and the doctor had me leave the room while a nurse was in there with Calla, and told me that they had found multiple tumors in her brain.
Oh, wow.
And that they were going to rush us immediately to Kosare Children's Hospital. And that I needed to call Benjamin and tell him to come home. So I made that call and asked him to come home, and he started making all those preparations to leave the team there and come to us. And Calla and I went on our way to Kosare, where they did a whole bunch of tests, an MRI, and they had us in a quarantine room because they couldn't rule out that it was something infectious. And so just a lot of hard things for Calla, a lot of unfamiliar things for us, and just a lot of uncertainty about what this even was and what we were looking at.
All of it unfolding in a matter of just days. And for me, being on the other side of the planet,
Were you fully informed of the situation?
we knew, because it was just over the course of like 2 or 3 days,
right.
When she'd first told me, because we'd try to FaceTime at night, because I'm 8 hours ahead, and so for me, I would trying to grab a little window to see the kids and everything and see Crystal. She told me, Cal had a headache today, and we're like, okay, weird. And when they thought that it was maybe a stress headache, like that made sense. It's the longest I'm ever gone, and I'm gone for 2 weeks for this. And a little bit about Calla, this is a trip that she wanted to be on. Not necessarily with the college students. I mean, she honestly, they were all her friends. But the fall before, in 2018, because all of our children, they've grown up sharing their daddy with these kiddos in Romania, because I've been leading trips there since 2008. And Kala's heart for the work and ministry of Forget Me Not, I mean, it's an incredible ministry, and they do good work. And I'm thankful that I've got to be a part of it and lead others into it. But in fall of 2018, Kala, in her determination to get there, to see these kids, she started her own business, her own slime business, made her own slimes, and put them on the internet. And because she was determined to raise the money necessary for Daddy to take her, so that there would be no roadblocks in her getting to go and be with these kids. And I mean, we remember that following morning when she woke up to like 30 some odd orders. She was like, I should stay home from school. Like, I don't even know like because it was almost like this beautiful panic mode, because it was like, I got some slime to make, and it was incredible. And so it made sense that like when Crystal first said, they think it might be a stress headache because you're gone, and this is a trip that you're where she wants to be. But literally, I mean, it was 2 days later that we're in the ER, and suddenly these headaches are not just allergy or viral or stress. There's things in her brain that don't belong. And for us, for her, it was the middle of the night to call. For me, it was right at the end of breakfast on a Sunday morning, as the team was getting ready to load up and go to church. When I got that call that said I needed to come home. And so my steps were to talk to my key leaders to say, here's what's got to happen. And then go to tell the team that you're going to go to church. And when you come back, I'm not going to be here, because I got to get home. And I started my trek from Tinka, Romania to Budapest, Hungary, to fly to Paris. And I could write a book about spending 11 hours in the middle of the night in Paris, to get home, to get back to my family, our family. But that sent us on a stretch where our world turned upside down. And for the next 8 weeks, we saw everything.
They diagnosed Kala with a form of brain cancer, but it wasn't a kind that they had ever seen before. It was rare, it was new, it was unpredictable, and it was super aggressive. And so it stole more and more from her day by day by day, to where when we got to Cincinnati Children's Hospital, we were only there for a couple of days before she had her first seizure, which rushed her into an emergency combination of
2 surgeries in one.
It was a biopsy of tumor tissue, but it was also to install drains into the portions of her brain that were just getting backed up with brain fluid. And so to try to relieve the tension that she was feeling. But we watched that girl, that brave girl, cling to Jesus. I remember wheeling her through the hospital and trying to prepare her for some of the things people might say about God chose you for a reason because you're so strong. And she just looked up at me and she said, Mommy, this is not God's fault. Because I think that girl knew what she was facing, maybe more than we did.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that Jesus was close to her. And she went into a pretty long period where she was asleep for a long, long time, and would only wake up for short periods of time. And they started an emergency combination of just chemotherapy, trying to get ahead of it without even being able to diagnose
a diagnosis
it.
because
Oh, wow.
the pathologists, the neuropathologists that were involved, I'll never forget the neurosurgeon saying this. He said, typically, he says, there's nothing typical about pediatric brain tumors to begin with.
Right.
But he said, typically, the images, like the scans and the biopsy, match up, and then it falls into a category, and then we know what treatment steps to respond with. And he said, Callas are creating their own category. And the pathologists who were looking at it, one of them is literally the one who wrote the textbook on pediatric brain tumors. And they'd never seen this before. So Calla, in her fierceness, she is facing like the deck is stacked against her. But her
I remember
fierceness.
After being asleep for several days, she just woke up and she was moving around. She had held a pen. She was trying to color, and then she just grabs my phone and she scrolls down to my Passion app, Passion, and she scrolls down and she plays this song. And it took so much effort for her to even move this much, but she just exhausted leans back in her bed and she put that phone out in her hands like this, and it plays "I'll Follow You Anywhere," the song, which is beautiful but so brave, because it says, wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, I'll follow you. And so she just, because she couldn't speak, she let that song speak for her, and it was such an obvious, intentional, deliberate
The doctor
thing.
was like wide-eyed, and we're just in worship at her bedside. And I remember the doctor saying how she just said, she goes, I love that she can find comfort in this. And I just thought, I don't think this was for her. I think this was for us. Like I think Calla was having conversations with Jesus that was giving her a window into what was really unfolding in ways that we don't know how to understand. But I'm a proud daddy. My goodness, I could talk about all my babies all day long. But Calla is so radiant. She's just magnetic. You're drawn to her. She's the kind of kid that can walk into a room and just own it effortlessly, never in a demanding way, just in a, I have a plan, and that plan includes you. And who doesn't want to hang out with that kid?
Yeah.
Like, watching her in a church lobby on a weekend with a dozen college students circled up around her, talking with her like they're besties. She just has this way. And watching her in a hospital bed just be her. Watching people coming from everywhere to meet this girl that they've heard about. Just humbling to watch her so faithfully and so fiercely fix eyes on Jesus in the way that she was responding to what she was walking through and the intensity of pain. because it's hard to put to words how helpless you feel when your child is suffering. But helpless is not hopeless. And that's a piece of our story.
So just 8 weeks after we went to the hospital, Cal's tumors got so big that the damage was irreversible. And she was in our arms, and we got to hold her when Jesus came to get her. And Jesus was there. Like, that presence was felt. And I know we call it a rescue, because it is a rescue. She was suffering, and it was awful for her. And she's in heaven now with Jesus.
Yes.
And it's a rescue.
And we live life in between her rescue and our reunion. And this is the race marked out for us. That we would lean into these moments as faithfully, and fruitfully, as humbly as we know how, and holding everything loosely. I know for us, like, it is hard to articulate. I mean, you will often feel like you're speaking a foreign language. To be able to articulate a pain deeper than you have words for. My vocabulary is not equipped to explain what it's like to have your daughter rescued to heaven and home, but Jesus, while in your arms. But we can say, oh goodness, God has been so faithful. We have watched his people, the church, be the church. We have seen the goodness of God pour out through the people he's placed around us. I am convinced, he has sustained us through all the prayers, the powerful prayers of people. Or when people discount prayer all the time, and I'm telling you, it is the most powerful thing we can do, because it reminds us that we must be anchored to our source and our sustainer. Over and over and over again, people would say in the hospital, you guys are so strong, you're so strong. And all we knew to say was, any strength you see in us is not from us. But God has surrounded us with so many people that love him dearly, and they have loved us dearly. And he has been loving us and comforting us and grooming us and pruning us and reminding us that he's not left us. And I think about something that a friend of mine, he's become a friend through this. One thing he told me was simply, to be near Jesus is to be near Kala. So stay near to Jesus. Yeah. And he said, you can have all kinds of days that come and where things are just not going to make sense. And you just be near to Jesus. You hold tight to him. Because when you are near him, you are near her. And that is ministered to me. And that is coming from a father who has lost his daughter. But God has proven over and over and over again that he's not done. He's not done with her story. He's not done with our story. He's not done with our family. He's not done. He's not done.
This is honestly, just to give my perspective on this. This is how I ended up meeting you and Crystal. Laura has known you guys a significantly longer time than I have, and I've thought about this more often than not on the reality that you guys are in right now. Like you just said, this is now the race that you're running, and she asked me because she was in Ukraine to come on her behalf to Callah's funeral to give my condolences, and I could not keep it together because I've thought about it over and over that you guys you took on nature to fight to keep your daughter here and in this world, and to for a stranger that you guys had never met to try to just come and give condolences. It to me was like, I don't know what I can say. It feels like anything that I would say to try to make you guys feel better in any way would be an insult, because it's like I don't know this pain. I don't know how deep this goes, and to try to surmise that is just, I wouldn't even bother. But you guys, since this period of time, have been beacons for so many people, and this reality that you're in, this race that you're running right now, there are people who have gone through this and have just, this literally, it never makes sense. It's not supposed to happen. And these people would just have a complete sense of hopelessness. And to see you guys go through something that is unnatural, it shouldn't happen. This is the result of a fallen world. And for you guys to become this light and this beacon for people, I only hope that for myself I can learn half of this strength for other people that I may end up walking by in my future. Because if I had been in your position, I would have demanded answers. I would have wanted to know why. I would have wanted to know, like, this, it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to be like this. So, let's change this. Let's do something. Just make it go away, And it's just so perplexing to me that this world can fall this far, and it can hurt this badly. But here you guys are, and you're literally, like, in light of what's happened, you're taking the inspiration from your daughter who the entire time did not waver in her faith, did not waver in who she was, all the way until she went home. And you are bringing that to other people. And I don't know what navigating that looks like. I don't know how you guys are navigating it. I'm floored to see you guys here functioning as well as you guys are, and to, like, as we had a conversation earlier, to see smiles on your faces, to hug and embrace. It's that alone, continuing to lock arms with your community and to say that there's a kingdom to be brought into this world. There is a person and a story to be told. There's a good news to be told to people. I mean, this is you're one in a million, and you're unique, but you're in my mind, this chink in your armor, this wound that you've sustained, you've handed it over to Jesus, and Jesus is healing this wound. He is piecing the armor with himself, and you're going to show people how much better you guys are, and how much more your faith has grown, and the abundance of your life with Jesus in lieu of this is going to be. And that's a hope that I can't communicate to people, because I'm not in that race. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Nobody does. But I can't talk to somebody who's spent their entire life in prison and say, man, I know. I don't. I grew up in a loving family. I can't say that I know what it's like for your pain at all. I absolutely cannot. But you guys, since you have been here, God bless you for you guys going to lock arms with those who have. And you're going to say, hey, I'm going to show you where the hope is. I'm going to show you where the hope is in this situation. My third cousin took her life a couple of years ago, and her mother and father have since walked through this life of experiencing the loss of a child. And if you're not there, you just, the words that you try to speak on it, they fall on deaf ears, because it's like, what do you know, but you two are literally that beacon. You are. And I just can't say it enough. I'm honored to be able to just simply just have this conversation with you guys, and to hear your story, and to just pray and have community with you guys, and just witness your strength in this. And I want people to know more about this strength that you guys have. And
humbled by your words.
Yeah.
I know I told you this on the phone a while back, but I remember you saying on the phone that you were worried about having the words to say. Some things are just not words. Mm-hmm. But I remember your embrace in that line. Mm. So, brother, know that.
Yeah.
I remember hugging you in that line. And, there's such power in presence. When we choose to be present and stay present. All we need is found only in Jesus. And I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
That there's a pathway, there's an intimacy in this pain.
Yeah.
Because you recognize how insufficient of saviors we settle for in our everydays.
Yeah.
There's an intimacy with him, and there's a sense of surrendering to the suffering. We don't want to just survive it.
Right.
You have to surrender to it. And he sustains. God doesn't share glory. And so I can tell you the same thing. Any strength you see in us, it is not from us. Our job is to be conduits of the kingdom, and to rest in his provision for whatever it is that we need, and trust that he's good. And this road is weird, and it's wonky, and it's hard, and it's confusing, and we're not experts in anything. if anything, we're only experts in our own story.
Mm-hmm.
But we know this, we are committed to surrendering every bit of who we are, every gift, every passion, every opportunity for it to collide for the kingdom. We want nothing of our lives to not be surrendered to him for his eternal purposes. And that's what's given birth to the brave way home. We've just prayed and prayed and prayed that God would give us a vision for what on earth he's going to do with us. And we began praying over a lot of the language that we've already written. We were praying for God to give us a vision and give us the language that made it make sense, that we could share all of these stirrings inside of us. And there's a longing, because I think walking this road, it has awakened our longing for home. This is not home.
Yeah.
This is not home. And beginning to lean into a deeper theology of heaven, a clearer doctrine of heaven that allows heavenly thinking to invade earthly living. I think that's one of the ways that God can redeem the darkest and deepest of pains. That when we surrender all of this, he can redeem it and he can heal it.
Yeah.
And that's a progressive tense, I believe, until he comes back. Grief takes a whole bunch of different shapes and sizes, and there's plenty of opinions about it, and we're not going to pretend to know all of it.
Yeah.
We just know how God's been faithful in the midst of ours. And that longing in us, it is what God, I think, has given us a perspective that says, oh, if our hearts are, if he has already put eternity in our hearts, why are we so focused on being cozy here?
Right.
That's not to say that God does not intend to bless us in this life. That's not to say that, oh, let's microwave it and get this over with. That's not to say that at all. It's to say, like what Scripture says, like what Peter says, don't get cozy here. You are foreigners.
Yeah.
This is not home. I mean, what we just did is started immersing ourselves in all the passages that God has used to anchor us in this season. Everything. I mean, Hebrews, everything. 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, like Philippians 3, 1 Thessalonians 1.
Yeah.
2 Corinthians 1, 2 Corinthians 4. Like, I mean, like, just keep going down the line. How much language is speaking to what is to come and where our eyes are to be fixed. Like what Paul says in Colossians 3, right? Like, set your sights on things above, on the realities of heaven. I don't know if you want to share on some of those passages.
No, I just think, I think that keeping in mind a perspective of that this world is temporary. And my separation from Kala is temporary. And that hope is, I'm following Jesus's example where it says in Hebrews, like, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. You keep the promises ahead. You keep them in front of you because that's what's going to keep you pulling forward. That's what keeps you moving, because I will hold my daughter again, and I will be reunited with her again, and I will have all the promises of heaven and a perfect existence where no more death, no more tears, no more pain, no more suffering, forever with Cal. And this is a temporary separation, but there is a permanent home ahead of me. And that is where she is enjoying right now the presence of Jesus, and that's where I'm going. So there was a point in this journey where I just looked at my life in ruins and I thought, what do I do
here. And you have to come to a point where you say to Jesus, your will be done. And the other alternative is, if you won't give me what I want, then I don't want anything from you. And to think of all the things that would give up, to just give up here, would be unthinkable. There is hope ahead, there is joy ahead, there is reunion ahead, and we know so much about what we're walking toward. We can't stop. We have to keep going because we're going somewhere.
And we got to do everything we can to invite everyone else to come with. Like, we want to invite people to have a heart posture and a perspective that recognizes that we are anchored in eternity. And those promises pull us forward. And that then should impact the way that we live here.
Yeah.
Pick anything, the way we do anything, the relationships that we pursue, the investments that we make, the jobs that we have, the words that we use, the time that we have all been given, the way we lean into those moments. That when we see that every moment is a gift, oh, how many more moments have you been gifted? That God wants to use you in them. And we just miss them because we're in such a hurry to do something else. Like it changes everything. And for us, we just want to invite people to a different heart posture, a different lens, a different perspective, because we want them to come with, because that joy is set before all of us. And for us, this is our story. This is what we got. And somehow, some way, God's not done with us. And I think he does his best work through broken people, especially the ones that can admit it. Because there is nothing in me competing for whatever glory may come from what he's going to do. And that's where we are. That's where we want to be. And it's given birth to what we're leaning into now in all different shapes and sizes.
So, giving birth to a brave way home. To go into detail about what this is, what this chapter is, can you lay out for me what a brave way home is and what you intend to do with it for the community either surrounding you or whoever gets in touch with you?
So what we did is we just started praying over all of the things that we've already written, all these bits and pieces. I mean, when I think back to over sermons and everything, because number one, there's no sermon I've ever preached that her fingerprints aren't on.
I didn't know
that. I mean, there's...
But I'm not surprised.
When she says that will preach, I get to go fishing. So everybody needs an editor and she's mine. And so we just started noticing it anew, all of the language that when we speak of spiritual formation and discipleship, how much of that language is journeying language. All the language that we use about when we speak about how every step we take is spiritually formative. All of it. Everything we talk about has to do with those movements of spiritual formation. And one of the books that had been given us shortly after Kala's rescue, it was written by a pastor who had lost his daughter back in the 90s. And it's kind of one of those books that you probably only read it if that's the club that you're in. And
he's just talking about how the way forward is hard, but it's good. And he says, as just as a sign off, he says, "Brave, brave journey."
And that resonated with us because it's like all we've been praying for is what is the way to articulate all of the things that our team woods, and how do we give language to it. And one night when we were circled up, getting ready to pray over Lila, I just had a moment, and I guess it's kind of set up. We're getting ready to pray over her, and I look at Crystal, and I just said, "The brave way home." And we just kind of had a moment of, is this what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Because with that came a flood of wayfaring language. Because like when you think about a wayfarer, that's somebody who walks by foot.
Oh, okay.
They're not on a paved path. They're on a trail.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind, it just starts racing with the beauty of the metaphor of when you go hiking somewhere, and you head off into the wilderness. The best way to know how to keep moving forward is to look for the evidence of the people who've walked there before you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful picture of discipleship.
Yeah.
And so for us, what we just said is, okay, there's a longing in us, there's a recognition that everything that we've walked through, it's embedded in everything. There's not going to be a sermon we preach or a song we sing or a story we tell that is not impacted or influenced by what God has taught us through what we have walked through. It's embedded in everything. But there's a longing in us to preserve a pathway that protects the distinctness of our story and Kala's story, so that it doesn't get lost in the embeddedness. And so what the brave way home to us is, it's a movement of heart posture and perspective that says discipleship can look different than what it maybe has before. And we just started thinking of what are all the things that fall under the umbrella of Team Woods.
Wow.
And how can we give language to the things that he has put in us and poured in us that we can then pour out. And so the heartbeat here is very much to equip. We want to call and equip. We want to lead people to deeper places. And we want to be faithful to the road we've walked, to radio back to people who haven't walked where we are. That what we would do is faithfully share with them what God has taught us that will better equip them for wherever they're walking. And so the practical expressions for some people, they will maybe interpret us as a grief ministry. And that may be what they need.
Yeah.
But for some, they're going to interpret us as a marriage ministry
Yeah.
or a family ministry.
Yeah.
Or a preaching and teaching ministry or leadership. Like there's a whole bunch of things, but what we decided was this is a discipleship ministry that is going to express itself in all kinds of practical ways. We are going to, because when you think in terms of discipleship in the way that grief unfolds in somebody's life, well, it falls under that umbrella in the same way that we care deeply about the marriage that's been entrusted to our care. And you don't have to walk through trauma to be a marriage on mission. But you have to be a marriage on mission if you're going to walk through trauma.
Yeah.
And for whatever it's worth, the story that we've been given, we can speak to people in grief, and we can speak to people who want a marriage that is anchored and healthy and holy and on mission.
Yeah.
And we can speak to people who want new ways to disciple their kiddos. by the culture that they create, by giving them language in how to learn the ways of Jesus and know that they're loved by Jesus, and then be people who pour out that love. So for some, it's going to express itself in all kinds of different ways. And so it's like the website, our website is probably the best way to start connecting those dots, because it also gives...
I was about to ask, where can people find you?
thebravewayhome.com.
Perfect.
Pretty straightforward.
Love it.
Pretty self-explanatory.
One of the first things we did as soon as we had that moment, we prayed. We prayed over Lila, and then I went and ran to the bathroom, cried, prayed again. And then as soon as Crystal came out from getting to sing over Lila one last time, because Mommy's her favorite, and Mommy's all of our favorites, so I don't blame her. Like, she's my favorite too. First thing I did was like, we need to grab those domains. We need, just in case we need, thebravewayhome.com is
every time Laura has an idea, I buy the domain. Seriously.
Yeah. So that's, we wanted that to be kind of the anchor, the landing spot, that allows us to not only share, the vision video that we just released a couple weeks ago, but it gives like the practical expressions of the way that we hope to leverage every bit of who we are for God's eternal purposes. We want to partner with Him. We don't want to impede the Holy Spirit in using us. So, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see what you guys do with this. You guys have been equipped from a young age and called from a young age, and you're stepping into this new chapter, and you've blessed so many people already, obviously, talking about your band, traveling across America, and just touching one random person in a random part of the world at a time, to, getting into a central hub where people from all over the world got to talk to you. And now you're stepping into this new chapter, newly equipped and with a new mission. And it just seems like from beginning to end of where I've heard and learned about your story till right now, you've just always been on mission, and that's a full and abundant life, with all the ups and downs included. But
we're excited.
Where we go together.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is for us, if we're going to, we want to equip the local church.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's gonna look like sitting with somebody in our treehouse.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
I love that.
We hang out in the treehouse.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
Sacred space to us.
Yes.
It can also, as we've learned in this recent stretch, sometimes it looks like leading worship somewhere or preaching on a Sunday morning. Sometimes it's looked like sharing our story in an online grief gathering.
Oh, wow.
And it's even looked like a marriage workshop.
Yeah.
Never imagined doing a marriage workshop. But it's blessed us to get to do that, because you can't get that many. Normally it was just with couples in our treehouse, but you can't get that many people in our treehouse. So moving forward, we know it's going to take different shapes and sizes, but we hope to be able to tag in a bunch of different places, even if it just helps them begin to see what they're doing from a different light. Because right now, in the context of COVID, right, even as we don't know if we're on our way out of it. Maybe it's hard to know.
Who knows, honestly.
But if you think about it, everyone is navigating grief in some capacity. But we've always been conditioned. You need to wrap it up. You have your moment. You need to be done with it by a certain amount of time and move on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we can be sensitive enough to tune in to the collective grieving of everyone's normal, maybe we can tune into the collective groaning for something new. And maybe the Holy Spirit wants to do something in that.
Yeah.
maybe
awesome.
there's a lot of freedom on the other side of some of the things that we've maybe lost in this season. And I'm not equating or diminishing anyone's loss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be the person that says I know how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because I won't be that person. But I know this. There's been a lot of things in the life of the church that we thought were really important, that maybe the Holy Spirit didn't need in the first place to change lives.
Yeah.
And whatever's next, I think it's going to have something to do with tuning into the groaning for something new.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm excited to be a witness of that. Honestly, I'm excited for y'all. We're coming up on an hour and 30 minutes, and I love conversations like this. I really do. I love the hour and 30-minute ones, you know. But do you have anything that you're wanting to say, or?
Well, I mean, I wish we could sit here and talk for like 5 hours. So maybe we can just like cut the microphones and then we can continue this conversation after.
Yeah, we can do it another time too.
For sure.
Sure.
I guess I would say just like how excited I am for you both, because I know you already have multitudes of people lining up excited for this, and we are one of them, because
Yes.
when I found out that you guys were starting this, I immediately sent it to Drew, and it's like, oh my gosh, like we have to like get involved with this. I subscribed immediately to the email list. I was so excited because honestly, we are still a very hungry couple, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But like, I just know you very well, and I'm getting to know you really well, Crystal. And I know it's like people can't see who I'm pointing to, so it's like I forget.
Yeah.
But I have always just really felt, most importantly, loved by both of you, and you're just very like warm, hospitable people that truly embody friendship to all people, and so you're very easy to like cling to and like want to follow. And so I'm just really excited to see what happens with this. And I know the Lord is going to he's going to move mountains with it. So that's really all I'll say.
Yeah. Is there anything else just for the audience listening that you would want them to know about you two, or anything before we go, or?
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
I mean, we going to the website and choosing to engage
Yeah.
and stepping into this story with us. We want to walk with people, and it can look a lot of different ways. And so I think for us, we're putting ourselves out there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a hopefulness, there's an expectancy, and there's more to come. And we have a ton of ministry ideas. We're just holding them all loosely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think one of the beautiful things that this mode allows is Kala's ministry. It still allows Kala's ministry to be what it is. I mean, because at this point, her slime shop, goodness, when we make her slime, we're following her recipes. We just put them on a wall, and a whole bunch of people that love her and are loved by her, that know her and are known by her, circle up with tables with their bowls, and they make a whole bunch of slime. And I'm just dumbfounded how all these people are following her lead.
Yeah.
Because they're following her recipes.
Yeah.
And this stuff is in over 40 states now. And her faithfully living out one of our family culture codes to look out for the left out,
Yeah.
both near and far, it's making its way into schools, it's making its way into classrooms, it's making its way into all kinds of different settings.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. And this allows her ministry to continue alongside and underneath that same umbrella. And so lovelikekala.com is another website that you can visit. But if you go to thebravewayhome.com, you can tag, go to hers.
They're linked.
They're linked together. So
Yes.
it allows for all of that to unfold. But yeah, we want to hear from people. We want the chance to connect. And if there's ways that we can serve people, if people hear this and they're like, hey, our church, there may be something to connect with. We want to hear from you. And if there's ways that we can serve, we want to be a part of that.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Ben, Crystal, bless you both. Thank you so much, honestly, for sharing. To tell it again and to explain it. I know it's difficult, but I'm blessed to know you guys and to hear your story and to see where your hearts are. And I know that other people that will listen to this will feel the same way. I'll say this to the audience listening. Definitely reach out, like Ben said. Go to their website, get connected with them, support them, and just pray for this amazing couple as they move forward to bless other people. I think that'll be a wrap. Thank you all for listening. Ben, Crystal, again, love you both. Thank you.
Love you too. Thank you.